10 Tragic Facts About Breaking Bad's Jesse Pinkman. Breaking Bad is a story about transformation. For the show's protagonist, antihero Walter White, it's less about his transition from mild-mannered science teacher into drug kingpin than his metamorphosis into the ego-driven manifestation of seething rage he embraces when he morphs into Heisenberg. And through all of it, his former student, cook partner, and mentee Jesse Pinkman serves as the show's conscience, struggling to preserve his own humanity under intolerable circumstances. Although Walt originally gets into the drug business to make money for his family, the only person who truly seems to connect with him during his Heisenberg years is Jesse, even if the relationship is an exercise in abuse for the younger cook. Although Jesse finally gets a quiet ending in Alaska when all is said and done, the road to get there is a rocky one, Blue Rocks, to be exact. Hop into the RV, because we're taking a look at the most tragic details about Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. Number 1. Drug addiction is a constant struggle for him. As is so often the case with substance abuse, Jesse Pinkman struggles with drug dependence issues throughout his adult life, an unfortunate problem for someone who makes a living in the drug trade. His relationship with Emilio implies that Jesse likely began using drugs in his high school years, and he manages to get by as a functioning polydrug addict throughout most of the series, occasionally smoking weed or meth. But things take a turn for the worse when he and Jane begin using heroin together. Jane, who is a far less functional addict, shows him how to mix and inject a speedball. After their ill-fated courtship leads to her demise, Jesse manages to get himself clean. But that's not the only time he relapses during the show, with the bleak turn of affairs surrounding Gail serving as a serious trigger. Although Jesse is finally forced into sobriety while enslaved by Jack Welker, getting and staying clean is a lifelong journey for him, as anyone who has struggled to maintain their sobriety understands. Number 2. He is semi-estranged from his parents. The fact that Jesse Pinkman's relationship with his parents is a troubled one is to be expected, given his extensive long-term problems with substance abuse and legal troubles. Although it would be easy to assume that he comes from a troubled upbringing, Jesse's home life growing up was a privileged one. And as anyone who has first-hand experience with substance abuse knows, supporting a loved one with these issues can easily turn into enabling, so it makes sense that the relationship would be seriously strained. Jesse grew up in a financially comfortable home with 2 parents, and there's no evidence in Breaking Bad that he was in any way abused. On the contrary, his younger brother Jake tells Jesse that his parents talk about him constantly. While Jake's overachieving suggests Jesse may have felt a lot of pressure to succeed, it's also clearly stated that his parents have reached the end of their rope. After finding a meth lab in his son's home, Jesse's exasperated dad Adam ultimately cuts him off out of concern over his influence on his younger brother, telling him, "Son, we can't stop you from ruining your life, but you will not drag us down with you." Number 3. His other father figure isn't the greatest. No matter what the reasons for Jesse's troubled relationship with his parents were, there's no doubt that he was sorely in need of a caring father figure in his life. So it's that much more tragic that the father figure he gets is the sociopathic study in toxic masculinity, Walter White. Although Walt is hardly deserving of his respect, Jesse continues to refer to him as Mr. White throughout their time working together. Although Walt seems at times to deceive himself into believing he's doing what's best for Jesse, he spends the duration of their relationship molding Jesse into Heisenberg Mark II. After all of Walt's manipulation and abuse, when Hank beats Jesse within an inch of his life, the desperate Jesse tells Walt, "I want nothing to do with you. Ever since I met you, everything I cared about is gone." And yet all it takes to get him back on board is a kernel of validation from Walt, who quietly tells him, "Your meth is good, Jesse. As good as mine." And it's ultimately Walt's carelessness with Jesse's life and safety that gets him enslaved to the white supremacists. Number 4. The school system failed him. Sometimes, even the students with the most potential can get left behind in the school system, especially when no one understands that their needs go beyond academics. That's exactly what happened with Jesse Pinkman before fate brought him across his old chemistry teacher's path for a second time. Although Jesse clearly has a bright mind and is able to understand Walt's cook techniques down to the most minute detail, he struggled badly in school. Jesse's mother tells Hank that Walt tried to motivate him and was one of the few teachers who cared, but Jesse still failed his class, likely because he was getting into trouble with friends and struggled to engage with the material. But despite what Mrs. Pinkman believed, El Camino suggests that Walt's opinion of Jesse's potential may not have been all that great. When Walt offers the suggestion that Jesse get his GED, an insulted Jesse replies, "What do I need a GED for? I got my diploma," adding, "Yo, you were standing right on stage when they handed it to me." As it turns out, Jesse had big plans after high school before he got sidetracked by the meth business. His My Shout page claimed that he attended DeVry University for Data Systems Management and dreamed of going to Wheelie School in Las Vegas. If Walt had actually taken Jesse under his wing as a positive mentor, perhaps he would have made more of his life. Number 5. He struggles with basic life skills. Despite his obvious street smarts, Jesse struggles with some of the basic, adulting, skills that are necessary to thrive in life throughout Breaking Bad. One of the most obvious of these is his lack of drive. His tenure with Walter White makes it clear that Jesse is a quick learner and a hard worker to boot. With his aptitude for hands-on work, it's easy to imagine Jesse working in a skilled labor role and moving his way up the managerial ladder. While many fictional drug dealers get into their line of work for power or money, Jesse seems fine with living a modest existence as long as he has a roof over his head and a gaming console. Number 6. He is repeatedly tortured and kidnapped. It's not uncommon for a fictional character to end up abused and tortured by the show's writers to a point that few mere mortals could endure, and in the world of Breaking Bad, the target in question is almost invariably Jesse Pinkman. Shortly after Jesse reunites with his former teacher Mr. White, the plot visits countless physical and psychological torments upon the tortured character. His endless stream of miseries begins with a serious black eye in the desert after his orbital socket makes contact with a desert rock, and things only get worse from there. Number 7. Killing Gail damaged him. With all that Jesse is forced to endure during his time cooking with Walt, that he would be psychologically damaged is something of a given. But it's the first time he is forced to take a life that breaks Jesse's brain. The trouble with Gail begins when Gus Fring realizes what a liability Walter is, between his off-the-rails ego and his DEA brother-in-law. To mitigate this issue, Gus forces Walt to teach Gail his cook method while planning to remove Walt from the equation as soon as Gail has learned enough. Convinced the only way to save himself and Jesse, who is also on Gus's hit list, Walt coerces Jesse to take out their replacement first, even if they both personally have no issues with Gail. Number 8. Seeing Todd kill a kid scarred him. Of all of the monsters that Jesse crosses paths with, perhaps none are more disturbed than the soft-spoken, pitiless Todd Alquist. Jesse first meets Todd when Mike Ehrmantraut hires him to help set up Walt and Jesse's mobile meth lab pest tent operation. Although at first, he seems helpful and eager to learn, it's soon apparent that there's something not quite right about Todd. Throughout the series, Todd kills and tortures others casually, effortlessly, and remorselessly, and yet at times, he seems almost polite. It's almost as if conventional ethics and empathy are completely foreign concepts to him. Number 9. He watched 2 of his girlfriends die. Although Jesse is hardly in a good place for forming a healthy relationship at any point during Breaking Bad, his fun-loving, caring nature and desire to provide for those he loves would make him a good partner, if he were able to get his life straightened out. Unfortunately, he never manages to get clean and free of bad influences long enough to find out, and Jesse's personal demons lead to the tragic loss of not 1 but 2 of his girlfriends. Number 10. He is really protective of children. One of the things that makes Jesse Pinkman's character so utterly tragic is just how kind-hearted and gentle he really is. Jesse's soft spot for children is first seen in Peekaboo, when he ends up at the home of the severely meth-addicted Spudge and his wife after Spudge rolls Skinny Pete at knife point, making off with an ounce of meth. Inside the filthy home, he finds Spudge attempting to break open an ATM they stole to repay him while he and his wife yell at each other. both ignoring their severely neglected but adorable preschool-age child. Jesse feeds and entertains the little boy as the parents fight, even putting the child in his bedroom when their yelling begins to escalate and carrying him outside with his eyes closed when Spudge's wife. Thank you so much guys.